Hello, I'm Bill Bullard with R-CALF USA, the voice of the independent cattle producer in the United States of America. Well, as everyone knows, R-CALF USA has been lobbying Congress for many years to take two immediate steps to fix the chronically dysfunctional cattle and beef markets. We've explained that the relationship between cattle prices and beef prices have been held together in a synchronous relationship throughout history, and that it is competition itself that was the glue that held this close price relationship together. But now cattle prices and beef prices are headed in opposite directions, and they have been for many years. That means competition no longer drives our cattle markets. That means our industry's single biggest problem is the loss of competition. And then that means that the solution must be to bring competition back. So we told Congress it must reinstate mandatory country of origin labeling, or COOL, to bring competition back to the beef market. And we told Congress it must pass Senator Grassley and Senator Tester's Senate Bill 949, the Spot Market Protection Bill, also known as the 5014 bill, to bring competition back to the cattle market. But here we sit, with beef prices at record levels and cattle prices seriously depressed. So let's look now at what the U.S. Department of Agriculture can and should do to fix our broken cattle market over the next 6 days. On day one, the USDA should invoke its considerable authority under the Packers and Stockyards Act to declare that the current market structure lacks sufficient competition to maintain the historical synchronous relationship between cattle prices and beef prices. On day two, the USDA should declare that the complete disconnect of this synchronous price relationship is causing irreparable harm to both consumers and producers because beef prices are going up and cattle prices are going down. On day three, the USDA should declare that this irreparable harm is a relatively new phenomenon that occurred after the beef packers substantially altered their cattle buying behavior. That is, after they began shifting large volumes of cattle out of the competitive cash market and into forward and formula contracts that do not contribute to price discovery or to competition. And we call these purchase arrangements captive supplies. So on day four, the USDA should declare that the beef packers' recently altered cattle buying behavior is harming competition. That is, it constitutes a competitive injury to the entire cattle market. Then on day five, the USDA should determine the historical cash market to captive supply balance, before which there was no competitive injury and after which competitive injury became measurable. For example, in 2007, the USDA completed a study and found that during the time period from 2002 to 2005, about 62% of fed cattle purchased by beef packers were purchased in the competitive cash market. And yet, the study found that even beginning at that 62% cash market volume, a 10% reduction from that volume level is associated with a decrease in the cash market price. Now, this supports the general conclusion that the cash market to captive supply balance, before which there was no competitive injury and after which competitive injury became measurable, is in the vicinity of a cash market volume above the 50% level. So let's presume it's 51%, subject to check by the USDA. So then on day six, the USDA should exercise its authority under the Packers and Stockyards Act to preserve and protect marketplace competition for both producers and consumers. And it should do this by enjoining beef packers from continuing to harm the competitiveness of the cattle market by requiring each packer to immediately maintain the same cash market to captive supply market balance they had the year before cattle prices were found to be reduced by the shifting of cattle out of the cash market and into captive supply arrangements. For example, if the last known reduction to cash cattle prices associated with too thin of a cash market occurred in 2005, then the USDA would require beef packers to purchase the same volume of cattle in the cash market as they did in 2004. Now that would mean the beef packers would have to immediately begin purchasing 55% of their cattle supplies from the negotiated cash market. Now, nothing would work quicker to restore the lost competition in our cattle and beef markets than to force the packers to begin competing for cattle. And when they do, we will see a return to the synchronous relationship between cattle prices and beef prices, and both will begin to respond to competitive supply and demand signals. Now, wouldn't that be nice? So please go to our website at r-calfusa.com to get more information and to join with us to restore competition to your U.S. cattle industry. With that, have a productive week. Thank you and goodbye.